What's up, everybody? Good late morning or early afternoon for some of you, and we got a little bit of catch up to do because the Seahawks made yet another hire yesterday afternoon, shortly after I posted my last video yesterday, and it was already kind of close to when the Hawks Nest stream was going to start, so I decided I'd go ahead and wait until today to talk about this because it's not exactly a groundbreaking hire. It's not anything earth shattering. It's not like, oh God, we have to talk about this a ton now because this is such a big deal. But I've said it before, I'll say it again. When you have a coaching staff that is constituted of so many guys with a lack of experience doing this, then it is important to fill out your assistants with guys who do have that experience and can help guide things a little bit. So I'm not going to downplay the impact of a potential defensive backs coach, and that's who we have now. Jeff Howard, who spent last year as the linebacker coach on the Los Angeles Chargers, is now the Seahawks defensive back coach. So some teams call it a secondary coach, some teams call it a defensive back coach. I don't know if there's any kind of a difference there. It might be a distinction without a difference. But I looked into Jeff Howard a little bit to get an idea of what we might be getting into, and I'm actually relatively impressed. Obviously, his most recent experience with the Chargers was not good, but it's also kind of irrelevant because he's not going to be a linebacker coach here. So Jeff Howard has been in the NFL for over a decade in some capacity. He spent, I think it was about 6 years under Zimmer in Minnesota as a defensive assistant. So he was learning under Mike Zimmer, and Mike Zimmer established a well-respected defensive mind in the NFL. So that's a pretty good tree to come from. Before then, he spent a little bit of time at Texas Tech. But I want to focus in on the last few years of NFL experience that he brings to bear here, particularly his 3 years in the Cleveland Browns defense. And I'm going to focus mostly on the defensive part. He was also the passing game coordinator, but that shouldn't be that relevant here because he's not going to be the pass game coordinator here. We already have a passing game coordinator. But yeah, let's take a look at Jeff Howard here. Go to his Wikipedia page. He does have a Wikipedia page. That means something. Yeah, you can see the experience. It's not bad. Like over a decade in the NFL. Now, most of it, like I said, was in Minnesota. And we also had in 2023, he was the linebacker coach with the Chargers, which, I mean, Eric Kendricks, longtime NFL veteran, still a pretty good player. Khalil Mack had a really nice year, right? They had Tui Tupliotu, who kind of came into his own a little bit as an outside linebacker in this defense. Good rookie season for him. And, of course, Bosa had a season drastically cut short by injuries. But then you have Ken Murray. Kenneth Murray, it's not happening for him, it looks like. He puts up okay numbers. He plays, but doesn't seem like he's really much of an impact player. So the Kenneth Murray first-round experiment looks like it's going bust, and Jeff Howard could not get him on the right path. But I want to focus in on what he did in Cleveland, mostly as the defensive back coach for 3 years, 2020 to 2022. So that included the year where they won the playoff game with Baker Mayfield, and then the 2 years after it where they had the injured Baker Mayfield, and then they traded him and got Deshaun Watson. So 3 years as the defensive back coach, it's pretty good. Like, you take a look at the players that he's worked with during that 3-year period. You had, I guess the safety tandem stands out. Grant Delpit was a guy that he developed over the course of 3 years. Became a pretty quality safety option out there for that Browns defense that last year really ascended. But you go back to 2022, they had a really good passing defense. It just, there were other elements of that team that weren't quite coming together. And you've seen that in this most recent year, it really did come together with the addition of some of the players that they brought in and some of the players they had just kind of spreading their wings a little bit. Guys like JOK becoming really, really good players. Guys like Dalvin Tomlinson coming in, they've become a great all-around defense. But honestly, in 2022, when Jeff Howard was the defensive back coach, their pass defense was good. They had John Johnson at safety, the other safety. Now, he's a veteran. He's been around a while. But they had a really nice safety tandem. Delpit, by the way, continues to develop into a really good player. And I think that if you really wanted to find something to get excited about when it comes to this guy, just look at Denzel Ward. Because Jeff Howard has been there for most of Denzel Ward's development as a player. Because he joined the Browns in 2020. And Denzel Ward got there, I think, a couple years earlier, but a huge part of his maturation process as a elite cornerback in this league who has made Pro Bowls, who is considered to be one of the best in the game, has occurred with the coaching of Jeff Howard. Now, there has been some stuff that happened in Cleveland that didn't go quite so well, like Greedy Williams has not really become the player people were hoping. Greg Newsome II, I don't know what to think about Greg Newsome II yet, but there's definitely talent there, and when he's on the field, you can see it. So if he ends up not panning out, it's probably more to do with the fact that he struggles to stay on the field at times. But I look at Denzel Ward, I look at Greg Newsome II, I look at Grant Delpit, and I go, this guy was entrusted with a lot, and he's come through on a lot of it. It's not all amazing, but it's good. Ronnie Harrison, by the way, I would throw him in there as well as a guy who has kind of been developed under the watch of Jeff Howard's coaching. So it's a pretty reasonable hire. This was a relatively important role to fill, I feel like, because you had Leslie Frazier as the assistant head coach, who is kind of a nominal defensive back coach, but what you want to do is get somebody in here with promise that can learn under Leslie Frazier and get something from Leslie Frazier's experience across these last several decades in the NFL. So I think that I think this is a pretty good hire. I don't think it's anything amazing, obviously. It's not like we just hired Bill Belichick as our defensive back coach. It's not like we just hired Mike Vrabel to coach our defensive backs. But it seems good. I mean, this Brown stuff is legit. There was some nice stuff that happened in Cleveland under his watch. And part of the reason why that defense has become so elite now is because of his impact on the team in the 3-year stint that he was there. So we're going to go to the coaching document that I put together for yesterday's video. We now have a secondary coach. It's more of a defensive back coach. I guess I can go ahead and change the name as well. I don't know if it really matters that much. And yeah, things continue to take shape here. I do imagine we're going to have an assistant DB coach at some point. That's just kind of common sense. When you have as many defensive backs as an NFL team does, you want more than one guy. And I don't think Leslie Frazier is going to be able to cover the whole thing, even though I do think he's going to do a lot in that regard. So, yeah, Jeff Howard, welcome aboard. Seems fair to me. Let me know if you guys have any particular thoughts on this one. Let me know if you guys feel any particular way about the way this staff is coming together. Again, there are a handful of spots that still really need to be filled. There are some things we need to do on this defensive line. We need to make a decision on BT Jordan. I think that one's actually really important. Hopefully we can bring him back. And, yeah, in the next few weeks, we'll probably know pretty much everything. We got to get this handled before the draft and preferably before free agency so everybody can be in the building when these decisions are made. All right. More right guard videos coming later today, but I didn't want to come in here with this one and let you guys know how I was seeing it, what I was able to glean. And with these guys, quite often, you can't glean that much, but from what I could pick up, seems like he's done good work. All right, go Hawks.